And to the markets, the bulls continued to dominate the equities market on Tuesday. The benchmark index appreciated by 0.58% following interest across value stocks. Well, Temple Ashaju will give us all the details and the major drivers. Hello, Temple. Good morning. Should we chair after the two-day rally we have seen in the market this week?
Well, I think we should maintain our positive sentiment on the markets because it looks like bargain hunting is really back in the system. And like you said, a lot of investors are now running after the stocks with values in the markets. And that's how we got to where we are yesterday. We saw a return to the value levels yesterday, some 3.2 billion naira. That's the normal level for transaction in the market, following the technical glitch that the exchange had on Wednesday that led to decline in the value of transaction on that particular day. And of course, yesterday we saw a kind of a revamp. So we're back to the 3.2 billion naira levels in the market. And we know that the bulls were basically dominating equities following their interest across these value stocks. Month-to-date yesterday, month-to-date losses basically moderated to 4.11%. And we saw the market breadth was also positive by some 20 gainers to 14 losers. We also saw that across the sectors, everything was really positive. From the banking name that was pushed up by Stanbic IBTC, the consumer goods that was helped by Dangote Sugar that gained some 3.9%, and of course the industrial goods segment of the market, which did some 311 basis points movement upward on account of the gains that we saw on CCN. Insurance segment of the market also saw Mansard returning to the bullish, to the positive side of things by some 8.33%, thereby impacting on the segment by some 3.50%. And the oil and gas, given the gains that we saw on O&O by 5.81%, was able to help close that market and that segment of the market positive. Now, if you look at the energy markets, basically, things weren't really rosy except for the gains that we saw on O&O, which was the only company that had appreciation in its share price yesterday. Seplat was flat. You got corn oil being flat. Forte oil at this point in time, yesterday was flat in terms of its movement, in spite of the almost 200,000 units of its shares that was traded yesterday. 11 PLC was also flat. There was no change. MRS, no difference at all. Seplat PLC was flat. Total was down yesterday by 2.60%. Some people had expected the news of Egina oil field production to basically change the share price of this company, but nothing has changed up until now. That the production is actually going on. Japal was also flat at 20 kobo. And of course, Eternal PLC, there was no change in its share price, but we saw a bit of transactions across these major counters of the market. At the NASD OTC, which is the unlisted securities market, we got the USI unlisted securities index closing positive 0.19%. And settling at 753.83. Market capitalization came in at 541.58 billion naira, while volume for yesterday alone was 44,650 and was valued at 2.163 million naira. Generally, there was just 4 deals yesterday, and of course, transaction was seen across some of the tradable companies on that particular platform. The fixed income space, we saw bullish sentiment return to the bond markets yesterday. We saw average yields now moderating by 11 basis points to 15.21%. We got buy sentiments across the short end of the curve, the mid, and of course the long ends of the curve. If you look at the short end of the curve, it was more of 9 basis points yesterday. The mid end saw 13 basis points movement, and of course, the long end contracted by 10 basis points. And these kind of sentiments we saw yesterday was basically driven by the demand for the February 2020 security, which contracted some 33 basis points yesterday. We also know that the January 2026 security contracted by 22 basis points, and July 2034, which is from at the long end of the curve, contracted by some 44 basis points. And yesterday, we saw some inflows from the July 2021 security, inflow from the coupon payments made by the regulators. And of course, that was to the tune of 40.68 billion naira. And of course, CBN continues to carry out its aggressive mop-ups. Yesterday, did some 22.51 billion naira in OMO auction, and it translated to some stop rates of 11.9% to 15.9% across the major tenors. In terms of the Treasury bill segment, proceedings was bearish. We saw average yields rising some 7 basis points to 15.32%, and yields expanded at the short end of the curve as well as the long end of the curve. At the short end of the curve, expansion was 8 basis points, basically, while at the long end of the curve, it was 10 basis points, a bit of compression there. We saw sell-offs, of course, on a lot of those securities maturing on January, February to March. We saw a whole lot of sell-off on all of that because maturities, of course, translates to a lot for a lot of the traders and a lot of the investors. So sell-offs was on the 9 days to maturity, where we saw expansion by 54 basis points, as well as the 198th day to maturity, and expanded by 63 basis points. These bills were basically where we saw activities yesterday. Okay. The demand for 121 day to maturities, that's at the mid end of the curve now, saw some kind of compression of some 13 basis points yesterday, and that led to yield contraction at that side of the curve. We're expecting the central bank to continue with its aggressive mop-ups in the system by way of OMO auction and a whole lot of things. Just like yesterday, we saw some sales of 22 billion naira.
Temple, you just have to hold your thoughts there and hang in there. Of course, inflation numbers came up this morning. We'll join you later on the show to know how that is being traded into the markets. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we will be looking at AfriInvest report on Nigerian economy in 2019. Stay with us.